Hello and welcome. My name is Aisha, and today we're going to be talking about setting intentions. And this is something that I'm very passionate about speaking about. And particularly at this time of year, you'll find a lot of content about goal setting, planning, word for the year, intentions at this particular time of year. And so I felt inspired to deliver you a perspective that might be similar or might be different, just so it's in the mix. I like to think of life as a smorgasbord, and all of us as beautiful, unique expressions of the divine, or whatever language you want to use, get to pick and choose from that smorgasbord how we wish. So you might hear something that I say and you go, oh, I like it, I want more, I might want to try that. I might want to try that idea on, or you might go, ugh, that's not of interest to me. And that's totally fine. Both of those are a complete success from my perspective. Life can be about learning, trying on new things. And so with the spirit of complete non-attachment, I just want to offer you my thoughts on this concept of setting intentions. So, first of all, I thought it would be good to define some terms. So some of you would have found this class because you're on my email list. And on the email list, I went into a little bit of detail talking about the three keys to setting, effective intentions. And one of these is about which part of you setting the intention. And in the email, I talked about your soul essence, versus your ego self, I think were the terms that I used. Now, there are a lot of terms that mean exactly the same thing. And just so that we're all on the same page, I thought it would be useful to have a bit of a conversation about what I mean by those terms. So from my perspective, your soul essence is your unique spark of the divine. So you might refer to this as just your soul, your higher self, your source self. Some people have, self with the little s and then self with the big S. Like there's lots of different ways to talk about this part of you. In yoga, they talk about the Purusha, which is the part of you that is birthless, deathless, and changeless. So the soul essence, and I might interchange these terms, so I just want you to not think I'm talking about 12 different things. This is what I'm talking about. This is the part of us, our uniqueness, and I'm not going to go into huge detail with this, but if you think of the clear light of eternity, your soul essence or your higher self is the first note, that moment of individuation where you became an individual expression of the divine. So this is what I'm talking about. In terms of this life experience that you had, this soul essence came into a human body, and you then began to have experiences. Part of what you began experiencing created and still creates what I referred to in that email as the ego self, or I really like the term constructed self. So in terms of this other part of you, this is, I might say, ego self, personal self, constructed self. This is effectively like an armor. So it's built on the fact that we live in a polarized world, that the human earth experience, unless you're an enlightened being, is polarized. So there's good and bad. The ego self is constructed by attractions, grasping, what we're repulsed by, what we want more of, fears, things like that. Just beautiful. So it's like an armor. Some of it is an operating system. So it's like you come into the family and you need to kind of learn, oh, don't say that. Say this, because then you get more of that good thing. Don't say that, because then you get that bad thing. So you get, even in a beautiful, loving family with no issues, and I mean, who had that? But even in that, we still develop a personal self. It's like one of my teachers calls it like almost like a caretaker personality for interacting in the world, because the soul essence would probably be silent a lot of the time. So that's what I mean. It's founded on polarities. It's generally at the bottom line of most occasions where the personal self gets triggered. The bottom line of that is usually a polarity, and it's often fear-based. So does that make sense as a concept? You've got a soul, I don't like to use the word pure because it's been really corrupted by a lot of religious organizations. So it's a bit of an ooey, polarized word, because then you can be impure, which, ugh. But you've got a soul self, and you've got some constructs around you that you've built up for basically operating in the world. Any questions about that? Because it's pretty important, and it's the first of the 3 key steps we're going to be going through. I'll just scan. Oh, I've got a thumbs up. Beautiful. Just scanning through. Excellent. Beautiful. So this is just getting some terms out there. The other thing I want to put out there before we get into the broader content is the difference between goal setting and intention setting. So, and let me preface this by saying there's nothing wrong or right with either. So it's kind of challenging to have a conversation in a 3-dimensional world where polarities aren't part of it, but I'm going to do my absolute best. So there's nothing wrong with goal setting. Think of it like a tool. So there's certain jobs where you know, if you're going to file your nails, you probably don't want a hammer, but a hammer is like super useful in other situations. Whereas the nail file is useful if you want to file your nail, or it's probably some types of art where it's useful. There'll be other applications. So it's not about saying one's wrong, and please don't think one is more evolved, or it's just different tools for different occasions. So I'm going to give you some examples and just explain just a little bit more, because you might not have thought about the difference, or maybe you have. So goal setting is based on the foundation of us in the world and needing to change things and move things around and make things happen, right? Get things done. So we tend to, we make a goal, we break it into steps. You might have a year-long implementation plan, and you're doing all the things, right? And there's lots of people that would be, really standing at the top of the stage and going, yes, this is how to kick goals and win life. And that's all good. There's times where this is a really useful tool to use. Intention setting is founded on the knowing that all matter arises from the clear light of eternity, including us. We are part of a nameless oneness, and there is an intelligence and wisdom in that is beyond human comprehension, particularly during a busy day where you're busy, do you know what I mean? Not liking that and liking this, and, just the busyness of life. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just explaining. So one intention setting comes from the foundational understanding that you have a soul essence. You are part of source, light, and so is everything else in the material world. So for those of you that are sensitive to energy, you can probably feel the difference between the two. Yeah. So as a little bit of an example, you might set a goal. Let's imagine you have a corporate job, and you might set a goal to get such and such a promotion, right? Or to reach a particular level in the organization. And you are going to stay late, do the things, prove you're valuable, put up with that person that you can't stand, but they're above you and you need their approval to get ahead. And you're going to do all this stuff and, plow on. And there's lots of people that really advocate the plow on. Do you know what I mean? What is it? It's almost like dismiss all of your signals and just get it done, and then you get the promotion and yay, right? Nothing wrong with that. Intention setting, which we're going to talk through how to do this, might be something like, and these are my words, so I can't help it be me when you are setting your intentions. Please use your words because we're all different. Intention setting might be something, if it was mine, it might be something like, my intention is to be soul deep satisfied in my working life with spaciousness for all my loves. And deep inside of me, that might mean people that I love, places that I love, you know, sleep-ins, time in nature, whatever, something like that, right? So to be soul deep satisfied in my working life with spaciousness for all my loves, in alignment for the highest good, my highest good, and the highest good of all involved. That's an intention. From the clear light of you out into the clear light of all things. And step one, the first response from life with a capital L might be that you get made redundant. And that is actually a sign that it's all working perfectly, right? Which is why I want to run a class like this, because people get derailed a little bit when they set an intention and they think things aren't working. And it's like, no, 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 everything that is not in alignment with this is getting taken away. So you're welcome to ask me questions in the chat or unmute. I just have got a message here. My image stays the same size. So are you guys seeing a video of just me, or can you see everyone else's? Because I tried pinning my video. That was my intention.
Just you.
Just me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh, maybe it was just me. I've pinned you myself. So.
Okay, beautiful. Good.
Sorry, Aisha.
Yeah.
Sorry. There are other people flashing up occasionally. I think that when others have joined post the start, your general mute of everyone has not necessarily happened across the board.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I haven't muted anyone on entrance. I've just got the video pinned. Well, look,
Okay.
keep me posted. Thank you, though.
If everyone can mute themselves, then they won't pop up on the screen.
Yeah, and also Aisha, I have you on just you, but when other people happen to make noise and they're unmuted, as she's saying, other people pop into the video.
Okay. All right. Thank you for letting me know. And yeah, just go ahead and mute. Go ahead and mute yourself. Lovely. Excellent. Thank you. All right. So any questions about that, just in terms of understanding the difference between goal setting and intention setting, because it's pretty foundational. And you don't have to think of your questions now. If one comes up later, you can just ask. Beautiful. Excellent. So now we can get into the body of the content of our conversation. So today is about the 3 key steps to setting effective intentions. I'm going to quickly run through all 3 and then we'll break each down. So the first is get clear on your actual intention and who is setting it. And, you know, is it your soul essence? Is it the ego self? Is it an intention that's born out of your wisdom or out of a soul's longing to experience? Is it in congruent alignment with who you are, or is it coming from your fear? So this is a really good thing to dive into, which we're going to. The second of the 3 steps is release your intention into stillness. And I'll explain more of what that means. Some of it's self-explanatory. And potentially the most important step is number 3, and that is be prepared for what comes up. The difference in goal setting is it's like you and the world, and you're alone in it unless you're, you know, planning with someone else, and you just make all the steps happen. With intending, things can happen, like I gave you that example with that soul deep satisfying job. Step 1 might be you get made redundant, and wonderful, because maybe what you actually wanted to do was open a floristry shop that sells art. You know, when you get this redundancy package and something happens, like that, life is filled with really interesting stories when we allow that personal, constructed, often fear-based self to begin dissolving and allowing life to move through us. So they're the 3 steps, and we're going to go into them in a bit more detail. So getting clear on your intention. This might seem like, duh, Aisha, like, obviously, but here's an interesting thing. When we're going around, let's say you're just walking down the street, you might be thinking, oh, I want that, and I want this, and I want that. It can often be quite, if we use the ocean analogy, it can often be quite surface level. And these thoughts, which they might, prior to doing this class, you might think that they're intentions, they can actually shift and change, just like the surface of the water. So you might be going, oh, I really want a month's holiday. Oh, I really want 3 new clients. Oh, I really want that promotion. Oh, I really want to meet an amazing lover. Oh, I really want to have some time on my own. Oh, I really want, and all of these these shifting desires, it's not that any of them are wrong or bad, but they might not necessarily, like new clients and a promotion might not necessarily coincide or work as well as life could do it for you in alignment with also having a month off. So it's like it's a little bit choppy, like the surface of the ocean. And the way I want to explain this to you is like this. So if you, we have this weird thing in Australia where people say, hi, how are you? But it actually just means hi. The person doesn't actually want to know how you are. It's very confusing for people that come to Australia because they start to answer and the person's already walked off. But that's a whole cultural thing that we don't have to go into. But if you were answering truly honestly, how are you, without any cultural conditioning, and someone asked you that question, you answered honestly in the moment, every hour that you were awake, that personal self, do you know what I mean? The constructed self, which pretty much, runs our life most of the time, unless you've been meditating for 50 years, would answer that question, if we were honest, differently every hour for most human beings. So like hour number 1, it might be, oh, I feel really inspired, or oh, I feel exhausted and I'm so resentful that so-and-so didn't do the dishes and I'm sick of this and I want to go away for a month. And then a couple of hours later, you might have had this great thing happen at work and you're like, I'm so inspired. I'm just loving this. I just want to do more of this. And then at 2 in the afternoon, you might have had a really dissatisfying conversation and you're looking on Seek because you just need another job and I'm so over it and I just want to join the circus, or I'm being extreme to amuse myself. But like, this is surface level thinking, and that's fine. That's just what the mind does. It's busy going, oh, I like that, don't like that, all of those kinds of things. But this is different to intention setting. It's surface level. So my suggestion to you is that you think of intention setting as a really, like it's a date with the clear light of life. It's actually something that you can make as potent or as meaningful as you wish. And if you were going like we've heard this is a silly example, but it's all I can think of, the 3 wishes that you get with the lamp and all the the funny stories about people that just kind of wish for things without thinking. So we all like to think we'd be wise enough if we're in a situation like that to maybe think about it for a while. Like there's no time limit on the lamp. So you might sit with something and then sit with it for a few days, sit with it for a week, sit with it, through all your moods when you're feeling resourced and unresourced and going, does this really sit with me? How does it sit? Body, mind, heart, and soul. And so this is what I mean by taking time with your intention, just allowing it to really sink in, to really feel it, because sometimes we might be thinking things that are actually part of a reaction. Yeah, so that's it. Get clear on your intention. And I would consider doing like sitting with something and just really sitting with it over time to just see how it really lands. And then we come to the other part, which is, and this is part of what you're going to be doing over that period of time. Or I've done this before and I've kind of done it over a day, but it's like this beautiful day where I meditate in the morning and I've got beautiful food. It's like a ceremonial day. So that's a little bit different when you're not interacting with other energies and things. So I'm not saying it has to be a long period of time. I'm just encouraging you to think about it as something that's powerful. Because a lot of us, the kind of people that would come to a class like this, have these beliefs, but then kind of forget to use them or use them flippantly, where it's actually, this is the power of life itself, which is amazing. So part of what you're potentially going to be looking at is, where is the intention coming from? So we all have this constructed personal self, and we all have a soul essence. And soul essences are unique. This is why if you ever have the absolute privilege to sit in the presence or learn from an enlightened teacher, this is someone who has dissolved their personal self completely. they're different from each other. Some of them are hilarious. Some of them are silent. Some of them are very almost engineer based. So they're able to speak about the mechanics of existence, but in like a very technical kind of way. So it's like you still have a uniqueness. Becoming one with that light doesn't make us all the same. It's not the same note. Life's an orchestra and we all have our own parts to play. I just wanted to say that sometimes the ego self thinks it's going to disappear, and it's like, no, you still get to have a personality. That was a bit of a sidetrack, sorry. So really sitting with, where's it coming? And you can use a goal setting tool, which we call the goal beyond the goal. This is me being a straight life coach for a second. So let's imagine you've got something that feels like an intention, and you might sit with it and think, okay, you know, if this was to happen, if I was living like this, what would that give me? What new thoughts would I be thinking? What new experiences I'll be having? What's that? Or what's the positive benefit of that? So it's called chunking up. Just what's the positive benefit of that? What's it going to get me? And you might get into something that kind of resonates with more of a soul essence type feeling. The other thing that you can do is sink down into it, like getting into a bath and just going, where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? Like, so just kind of going down in the elevator of your being and just kind of really sinking into what you want, because the mind has many layers. And any of you who have meditated understand the mind has many layers, from that surfacey place to the deeper, deeper, deeper place. So you can do either. You can do both if you're going to take some time with an intention. I'm just going to quickly check my notes and see if I've said everything I wanted to say about that. One of the things that can happen in this process, and I've actually experienced this many times as a holistic life coach, someone will come, and this is an old example, but it's such a good one from early in my working life, that I had a client and her goal was to be a millionaire. I think she'd done some, you know, big name courses where you get up and say, yeah, kind of thing, that kind of stadium-based thinking. And she was like, she wanted to be a millionaire. I'm like, no worries. And so we did this. We're like, okay, what's that going to give you? How are you going to live? I didn't have the understanding of the intention setting that I'm teaching you, but I still understood the benefit of chunking up and chunking down. And she described this, was very popular many years ago, like the perfect day. She's like, if I was a millionaire, then I could start the day walking on the beach, and then I could come home and do yoga, and then I could do a bit of work, and then I could do this, then I could do this. And I watched her body go, oh. And so if I was to put my language around it, and the other thing she said was, and I'd feel confident. I just feel confident. You know, body, mind, heart, soul, these are my words. I'd feel confident, and I'd feel like my life was spacious and free, like I'd be free to be me. So we did some work together and we achieved all of that. But she didn't need to be a millionaire. Like, we lived in Mornington right near the beach. So we actually designed, we made some changes to allow her to live her perfect day, and you can work on confidence. And if her intention was strong enough, she might actually be the millionaire now, but at least she's done it from a foundation of genuine confidence. Confidence comes, and if this is of interest to you, just go onto my website, and I did a free thing about authentic confidence. It's just have a listen to it. But genuine, authentic confidence comes from you being the truth of who you are. That's the kind of confidence you want, the kind of confidence that you'll think you'll get from an external source. It doesn't really work that way. And so doing that foundation of getting that time at the beach, having her yoga practice because that's what she wanted, and really landing in her confidence, for me, go ahead and be a millionaire, but at least you're not doing it from a foundation that's actually going to deplete and drain you. And if something happened to your money, you don't lose your confidence. So I hope that makes sense. I'm just wanting to explain the benefit of just really thinking, the benefit of taking time. Like I said, intention setting is a date with the clear light of eternity. So if you were, for most of us, if we could personify that and you got to have time with the intelligence of life, well, you probably wouldn't shoot the breeze. You'd probably really have to think about it. I think. Anyway, so that's the first step of the 3 things, is to get clear on your intention. And my advice is just really take some time with it and get clear on, is it your soul essence or is it your, ego self? Where's it coming from? Right? The second step is to release your intention into stillness. Oh, and I say these words and I just go, oh. So imagine your intention is a boat and you put it in the ocean into like some of the surf beaches near here, and there's 3 different rips and there's massive waves and all that sort of stuff. The boat might get a little bit lost, or like your message, if it was a message in a bottle. Be really different if you were sending it out on the bay, on a clear day. So the energy of our own personal self and the energy of life has got fluctuations like weather. And so if you want to be heard, it's probably best not to whisper in the middle of a big loud thunderstorm. So just allowing, might want to stand on the edge of a valley on a really clear day and speak your intention and have it echo all around you. And you get to choose. Now, I know everyone here will be at a different level in their own meditation practice or their own tools that they have to still the mind. So this is not a judgment. This is just use the tools that you've got as best as you can. And this is advice, like I said to you about the smorgasbord. You don't have to do this bit if you don't want to, but this is what I recommend. And create a space of stillness so that you're able to focus on your intention. So you've done the work with it, you've spent some time with it, you've maybe written it down as a big paragraph, you've maybe edited that paragraph down so that you've got every single word is meaningful, and it's really landing, and you're like, yes, congruent, soul deep, body, heart, mind, and soul, yes. And I've sat with it for some time, and it's still a yes on a cranky day, and it's still a yes on a totally resourced day, right? So you've got that. Take the time to create some stillness. Just create some stillness and speak your intention. It doesn't have to be out loud, but just speak your intention into that stillness. It's very different to going, oh, I've got to get this at the shops, and oh, that bloody person didn't get that thing done. Speak my intention. Oh, I probably should wash the dishes. It's just a bit of a different experience. And I think there's something quite significant about ceremonial space, or a potent space. And I think there's a resonance to it that I think you will really feel and experience the difference if you try it both ways. You're not going to break anything not following these instructions, right? Other than maybe not having that intention flow in the most graceful of ways. So you can try it out. But to me, this has made a big difference, having that stillness. I'm doing something significant. It's different to all my other types of thinking. So I tend to speak an intention after I've done like my morning practice. Is there any questions about that bit? Because it's going to be different for everyone. So that's why I'm not telling you, do this yoga pose and then do this and then do this, because we're all unique. So I'll just, no, all makes sense. Beautiful. Now we're getting to the juicy bit. So the third key to setting effective intentions is the get ready, right? Is be prepared for what is going to come up. And I'm not saying this to frighten you, but it's just about understanding, and this isn't a class about the mechanics and the structure and mechanics of the universe and our, and how it all works. I couldn't run that class anyway, but it's just about understanding there's a reason why this intention isn't in your life already. And so when we set an intention, everything that's in the way of that, now it might be on the mental layer, you just don't believe in yourself, or you've got some mental patterning restrictions. It might be on the emotional layer. It might be vibrational in terms of what you want has a certain frequency and you're just not there. So whatever is in the way is the best language I can find of this coming into your life in the best possible way, in alignment with your highest good and the highest good of all, needs to be presented to you. This is the intention setting process working perfectly. But it's often misinterpreted. So as an example, let's say someone's got a I'm not good enough mental belief. Now it's probably come through generationally, or it's come through this lifetime in terms of family patterning, or cultural conditioning, or whatever it is. And so if they set an intention, so let's say that intention I said before for like soul deep satisfying work with time for all my loves, and the first thing happens is that they get retrenched. They just go, see, it's not working. I'm not valuable. I can't have anything. Like, all it does is just reinforce. If it's misinterpreted, it'll reinforce the ego self, the constructed self, and they just stay where they are, kind of feeling worse. Whereas someone that understands the mechanics of intention setting, everything that happens after you set that intention into the clear light is helping you. It's signposts. All of it is supportive. And if it's something significant, things will come up. So I have a dear friend, she's still my friend, who set an intention to love her husband more. So she'd been on her spiritual path for a long time. Just about everything he did, she was reacting to. She was just so annoyed. She was just sick of being that person that was just reacting all the time. So as an experiment, she set an intention to love her husband more. What do you reckon day one was like? I'll tell you, it wasn't just day one either, but all of those things he pinged. The egoic structure is literally a structure. That's why we use the word triggered. Something happens and it pings your egoic structure, and all of a sudden you're reacting. If you're reacting, what is going on is yours. So it's like this is what is going to be needing to be seen and needing to be understood and needing to be processed. The greatest tools in your toolkit for this are meditation and processing. So if you don't have a tool or several tools, because all the different tools for different jobs for mentally and emotionally processing, this is really, really important. What do you do when you're triggered? If you don't know, you'll either just be lost in the trigger, or you'll and when we're lost in the trigger, it kind of looks something like everything's your fault, or do you know what I mean? Like we tend to deflect and to blame, or we numb, or we escape, or anyway, all the things that we're doing don't process the feeling. To process emotionally, you really need to turn towards, break that habit of deflecting or distracting, and turn towards the feeling and love yourself enough to be with yourself in a reaction. If you think about little kids, when something happens and they're upset, what they tend to do is go to a parent, if they've got a parent that they've got a secure attachment with, and all they want to do is be seen. They just want to be heard and understood. And often parents come in and go, fix this, do that, do this. And all of it is actually, sometimes it's because the parent just can't stand to see their child upset. So they don't have the skills to actually just sit and be. But if you sit and be with a child, they're usually over just about everything, surface level, in about 2 minutes. And we are also capable of turning towards emotions, sitting with it, and having that internal dialogue of lovingly attending to the reaction that's happening in your body. Now, this is an entire skill. Some of you will have tools for emotionally processing. Mental processing is different. These are things that I'm thinking through this year. I'm going to start teaching some of these tools that I use just to help people be independent in in their processing. So just kind of watch this space. I think there'll be some teaching going on there. So meditation does two really useful things. Or it does actually 1,000 useful things, but the two useful things I want to talk about right now is that it firstly cultivates the witness. And by this, I mean, let's say that soul essence, the part of you that's able to go, oh, wow, I'm having a huge reaction to that. Oh, wow, my body is in complete reaction, as opposed to just being in the reaction and biting someone's head off or that kind of thing. So that ability to cultivate the witness is part of what we get in meditation, because it's the part of us that we use to go, oh, I'm lost in thoughts, come back to meditation. Oh, I'm lost in thoughts, come back to meditation. So it's a super useful skill that you pretty much can only develop with practice. And the other thing that meditation does in this context that's super useful is it helps you, it firstly dissolves the egoic structure and allows you to build a relationship with that source self or that soul essence. And these two things work really beautifully with intention setting. So being prepared for what comes up and understanding that it's actually part of the process. And I've made it sound really dramatic. Sometimes it's not all that dramatic. Sometimes it can be, so as an example, when I was working on wanting to set, I think it was last week, it hasn't been a huge amount of time from coming up with the idea to run this and running it, maybe 10 days or something like that. My intention for today, my entire intention is to be of service. To be of service to those of you that turn up live, and to be of service to everyone or anyone who listens to the recording at any time for as long as the recording exists. So that was my intention. I've got some really little dot point notes just to make sure I don't forget one of the 3 steps or something like that. And other than that, I just kind of trust the flow of how it's all happening. I had a conversation with a beautiful friend this morning, and she said like 2 things that I was like, oh, yeah, I needed that and that. Great. So it's like sometimes it's be prepared for what comes up. Whereas if I had done a PowerPoint presentation and practiced this to within each of its life, I would have been completely not open to, do you know what I mean? But not necessarily, but a certain type of person, an earlier version of me, wouldn't have been open to what came in support of what I'm delivering. So sometimes the feedback from life is things that you see, things that you hear, a song on the radio, a conversation that you overhear 2 other people having at a cafe. I've got a really fun, I think this is really fun. I set an intention some time ago for an enlightened teacher. For anyone who's read Autobiography of a Yogi, like I think most people read that and go, wow, kind of, wouldn't it be amazing to meet someone like that? That was an intention. And for about 8 years, I've had this sitting on my desk. It's a picture, and it says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. My son gave it to me from a Mother's Day stall in primary school, and he's like 20 now. And all of these different little sprinklings came into my life in the lead up to me meeting this teacher. And the last of which was kind of a confirmation after I have become her student. She published a book, and on the book, it's a line drawing, but that exact picture of someone meditating in that way, cross-legged, the hand position is exactly the same, it's exactly the same size. That's the front cover of her book. And I just took a picture of them side by side and sent it to her, and we just, loved that my clear date with the clear light of life. It was like just that wink, just going, yes. So it's being open. It's completely different. And it took years for me to meet her, but it took years for me to be ready to meet her as well. So not everything, when I say be prepared for what comes up, don't be scared to set an intention. But it just be understand that sometimes what comes up will be your patterning. And so write it down, what happens, work through it. Or emotions that come up, turn towards it, allow it, love yourself enough to sit with yourself the way that you might sit with if you were the most resourced parent on planet Earth, sit with yourself the way that that resourced parent would sit in love with their child that was upset. So that's my very succinct way of describing a skill of of emotional processing. Is there any question about that? Do you want to ask anything about this step? Because it's quite significant, this be prepared for what comes up. I know I've explained it in a simple way, so all the words make sense, but does anyone want to ask anything?
I've got a question.
Beautiful.
You've given a really good example of things might come up which trigger you to work through things and let things go. Without giving specifics or mechanics, is there a good way for us to actually do that working through? Or I think that's my question.
Yeah, so there's a really structured way, like processing is like digesting. It's a process. Starts with chewing, swallowing, moving through, do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So it is, I'm describing a verb.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of how to do it, it's going to depend on what the trigger is. And it's, I mean, it's quite nuanced depending on what it is. So if it's let's imagine you're in the process of selling your house, right? And all of this fear that's coming from somewhere that doesn't make any logical sense of like, what if I'm going to be homeless? And what if this? And what if that? So some of it's mental, but some of it's physiological. So what I would give you what I would suggest in that moment is that you sit with those fears. So not when you're in the middle of the workday, but just make a date with yourself at, do you know what I mean? At 7 o'clock every night, I'm just going to sit for an hour and just go, okay, buddy, I'm here. Whatever it is, like I'm here to listen. Just feel whatever you feel and just be with it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why, and I know it's kitschy, but like you've got to feel it to heal it is the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's being with it, and there'll be wisdom that comes from there, and the mind will have all sorts of things to say. So I understand that's a little bit vague, and this is where, I mean, one of the things that I'm going to say next is if you're setting an intention for something that's deeply meaningful. So let's imagine you've had all sorts of issues with your body, or you've not ever had orgasmic sex or something. There's been some real shutdown. And you're setting an intention to, make love with a beautiful person. Lots of all the things that have hampered you, the structures that are in place of you being able to meet another soul in a body and make love with connection are going to come up. Similar to if you're setting a money goal and there's been big money issues, things like this, it's actually really healthy to invest in some sort of support. To have someone on the journey just walking the path beside you that won't get lost in your triggers with you and that can help you. There's lots of people that can help with mental and emotional processing. Yes, that's something that I do, but lots of people do that too. Or even if that's not something that you feel called to do on the smorgasbord of life, maybe partner up with a friend. And each of you just set a single meaningful intention and just hold that space for each other to just remind, hey, what if this thing that happened, what if it's part of your intention? So just having some sort of a witness that won't get lost in the triggers with you, and that can help you remember that you're on a pathway towards something and everything that happens is connected. That's what I would advise. And it's trickier to go into in terms of what to do because it's going to depend on what it is. So I described it a physiological kind of reaction. The mental processing for that example I gave you would be probably looking at the polarity of abundance and lack. There's an incredible book, and if you want to deep dive into kind of mental and vibratory processing, it's by a woman called Leslie Temple Thurston, and it's called The Marriage of Spirit, and it's phenomenal. It can be tricky to get a copy of, and whatever you pay for it, it's worth it. Like, it's a fantastic book. I've been in touch with them late last year, and part of, if I end up teaching processing, I've got permission to teach some of the techniques from Leslie because they're amazing. So what she would recommend is really looking at the polarity of, abundance and lack, getting clear on what the neutral position is between those two. And this is kind of like the teachings of Buddhism. It's like, what's the middle way between the polarities? There's lots of religions and spiritual beliefs that talk about dissolving polarities, which effectively the personal self is filled with these polarized reactions. And she would take you through a process. She's got a few processes, but one of them is sitting in, it's called squares, and sitting in the part of me that desires abundance and the part of me that fears abundance, the part of me that desires lack and the part of me that fears lack. And this is an incredible thing to do, to just allow all of this stuff to leave the unconscious and become conscious. So what I described before is called triangles, where you just go, okay, so lack, abundance, what's the ascended neutral? Or I was working with a client recently that was struggling with shame. But what he wasn't looking at was all the parts in his egoic structure where he was really operating from pride. He was very invested in how he seemed to be to others and all sorts of different things, right? And then was lost in shame privately. And we worked on a triangle where I got him to sit in humility. And humility includes that, yeah, sometimes you get it wrong and sometimes you get it right. So humility has a completely different frequency, which when done, I was going to say done properly, when done well or really worked with, these are not speedy, take a pill and it's fixed type solutions. There's being willing to sit in the deep discomfort of the part of you that, do you know what I mean, desires feeling ashamed or desire, you know, these sorts of things. So I hope, does that answer your question? I know it was a little bit roundabout.
Yeah, it really does. Thank you.
Beautiful. The book is called The Marriage of Spirit, and it's by Leslie Temple Thurston. Beautiful. So thank you for asking that question. That was really good. So yeah, be prepared to work with what comes up. And this just leads me, before we move on, into, I'm sure you're potentially starting to see the benefit of not working with 65 intentions all at once, because you might get a little bit confused about it. Oh, is that about the job thing, or is that about this? So it's just useful when you're beginning. I'm sure at other higher levels of consciousness, maybe you can do all sorts of things all at once. But you know what I mean? When we're beginning with any skill, I find it really useful to just focus on something meaningful, so that you're just really aware that you're playing with life's feedback, so it's just a little bit easier. That's what I would recommend anyway. Beautiful. So the last thing that we're going to talk about is how to apply this information. I've given you some ideas of how to apply it, but I've got a few points here to cover. The first is my recommendation. Again, like I like the L plates in Australia. When you're learning to drive, you have these L plates, and where I live, young people have to do 120 hours of learner driving that's supervised before they can have their driving license. And so I think with any new skill, the idea of learner plates, the humility to understand we're at the beginning of something, I find incredibly useful as a foundation. So when we're learning something, my advice would be to pick an area of your life where there's not really significant time pressure on the results. So like if you're about to go bankrupt and this is deeply distressing for you and you've got 72 hours to come up with a solution, yes, you can absolutely set an intention, but it's going to, your personal self is already going to be so triggered. It's going to be trying to get a reply from that message in a bottle that you sent out through some really intense weather. So while you're beginning, I'm not saying don't do it, but in the beginning, it might be cool to set, it might be easier to play and build confidence in the process if you set something where time isn't a massive factor, or you've got a year or something like that. That would be my suggestion. Let me just check and see. Yeah, if you're choosing something really significant, I advise you to just consider investing in some support to just help keep you on track. As one of those things. One of the other factors that's really important, and people get a little bit tripped up at this, particularly at those big events, like big event, I call them the rah-rah kind of workshops, which is probably quite dismissive, and anyway, I'm a work in progress. But when you're in a high frequency field, which can happen if you spend 3 days with someone building energy and building energy and building energy, you can be in a place where you think anything is possible. And I'm not disagreeing. The soul self here, that's part of the clear light of eternity, has access to the oneness. We are capable of absolutely anything. That's why we're capable of anything that's in alignment with what we came here to experience. There's a few, caveats on it. But we can set things in that, let's say, a high frequency field, or from a place of wishing, or from a place of seeing what someone else has achieved and wanting the same thing, that we don't bone deep believe is possible. And this is a huge interference in your field when it comes to intention setting. So this is a little bit where it can be a frequency-based thing. So let's say for someone, I had a client once who wanted to have a public speaking based business, but he currently wasn't doing any public speaking. He'd done a qualification as a, let's say, a kinesiologist, right? That's a health-based qualification. But other than the work that he had to do to get qualified, he wasn't seeing any clients. So at the moment, he wasn't used to eyes on him in a professional setting. So when he came and he was like, I want to, do you know what I mean? Fill an audience of this many people, and I want to be doing this, and I want to be doing this, but the topic wasn't clear and the confidence in his modality wasn't there because he'd just qualified and he hadn't seen the results of what was possible. So he was saying what he was saying what he wanted, but with a couple of questions, we could feel the shaky foundation. And so this foundation of belief, the only thing that we needed to do was to stretch out his time, stop having a time limit on it. What he wanted was absolutely possible, but it included building, like using his modality, even if he did it for free, volunteering places, building, client stories, building an audience. Be willing to speak to 10 people. Just be willing, do you know what I mean, to just build the skills and build the skills. Some of it's vibrational to be able to hold an audience. Some of it is confidence-based, some of it's experience-based. So what he came with initially as a goal, he didn't really believe in until we added in some time. So belief and faith is important. You don't have to know how. So in order to meet my teacher, I didn't have to know how. I wasn't going to find her in a Google search, right? So you don't have to know how, but you can believe it's possible. And so is that messing with anyone's mind, or does it make sense? We don't have, like, life, the capital L can work out the how, but the belief is really important. And if you go in as part of this sinking in or chunking up and you go, do I believe this is possible? And if the answer is no, then maybe your first intention is to open you up to that belief. Do you know what I mean? Open up to that belief, or take a portion of it that you can believe in and just be there. Thanks, Kimberly. So just opening up to that belief. Opening up to the belief. Or like, I had a client set an intention. She actually said it before we met. And she was like, I want to turn 40. And this was like 3 years in advance. And she said, and I want to turn 40 having forgiven myself. And I want to be looking forward with hope. It's like, oh, what a magic intention. And we're halfway through her 20-session package, and she read it to me. And we were going, wow, just looking at all the things that had happened in her lead up to then meeting me and working through all those things. And she'd forgotten about the intention. So it's like sometimes we can set an intention, but can you feel how artfully open that is? I want to forgive myself. She's not saying how. She's not saying I need to have done these modalities. It's got to be done by blah, 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 blah. There was a loose time frame of a few years. And I want to be looking forward with hope. It wasn't like, oh, there's got to be a man in my life. He's got to be 6'2". He's got to be this thing is got, like, not the specifics. Specifics are for goal setting and planning. Intention is you open up to for your highest good and the highest good of all. But that belief, this is why sitting with your intention and getting the words right, if there's anything in your intention that your body goes yeah to, or oh, I don't know, or whatever like that, just work on it a bit more. Just work on it a bit more. Just have that belief. Don't have to know how. You just have to believe that it's possible. And step one might be, I know, like, there's something going on for me in my personal life at the moment, and it's fascinating me that pretty much every day someone is telling me a story about a similar situation going wildly well. Like, life is saying to me, have faith, have faith, have faith, in all of these just random conversations. So it's like, sometimes if you set an intention to have, you know, belief, to show me life that this works, even, or something. Do you know what I mean? It can be, you can set a foundation of belief and then just watch what happens. But I wanted to speak to that belief, because this is something that's a big part of goal setting. People even say, set a goal that scares you. Like, set a goal that you don't think you're capable of, and then you just work on it until you get there, and blah, blah, blah. And I've done that, and it's quite satisfying, and you produce things and you get things done in the material world, and there's nothing wrong with that. Remember, it's the tool for the job. But intention setting, we want a belief there. And this will be taken care of automatically if you're setting an intention from your soul self, because the soul self knows that it's part of the oneness. And when you put that alignment in for my highest good, or in alignment with, you know, soul truth, or whatever the words are for you, it'll take care of that as well. But I just wanted to finish up naming that, because it's an element that is sometimes missing. So that brings me to the end of my content for today, or our content for today. So I'll open it up. Is there any comments or questions or feedback or anything that you want clarity on before we finish up? Right, I'll just, oh yes, go.
Sorry, not clarity, but I just want to say thank you so much. I had so many emotions through that, and you wouldn't see it, but I had little tears running down my face at one stage. So thank you.
Oh, that's my absolute pleasure.
There were some little bits that I've sort of circled as well. Take time with essence of self. That intention setting as a date to be clear with the light of life, eternity, which is just beautiful, and digging into that why. What's the why behind this goal, and where is that coming from?
Yeah.
The tools were really good. Obviously, I'm processing something right now.
You are, yeah, beautiful.
And finally, the belief that this is possible. Yeah, you're so right that there is so much out there that you say, okay, well, the goal is that focus, that SMART goal.
Yep.
You know, it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's realistic, it's time framed. We have that in that box, but that difference between the ego self and our soul self is what we are constantly struggling with, this physical world versus our spiritual self.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, that's my pleasure. And thank you for saying that. And these things often touch a deep part of us, and the emotion is beautiful. It's all just releasing and letting go. And on the other side of that emotion is more of your light, which is beautiful. And it's reminded me of something too, which I talk about a great deal, which is consent. Now, we usually speak about consent in a sexual context. If it's anything other than a hell yes, that means no. That's what we teach our young people, hopefully. But I talk about consent in terms of that soul self. Like, is it body, heart, mind, and soul? Am I a yes? Because when we set goals from an ego self, we often plow right over our lack of consent. right? And it's tricky to name because there's a little element of feel the fear but do it anyway. And I understand, you know, that kind of thing. But there's a difference between, like when I started teaching, soul deep, I wanted to share what had helped me so much. My body was afraid of speaking and my knees shook and I felt nervous, but I was a deep yes for what I was doing. This is completely different to trying to get that promotion, doing things you don't really want to do to get there, and you plow on and you've set the goal and don't sabotage yourself and, you know, I mean, get it done and just plow through all of your lack of consent. And this is another reason why support is useful, because it's very tricky to tell the difference. The body reactions the same unless you can sit with that part of yourself. But to me, this is what you're talking about, consent. Yeah, did someone else have another? Something else? Maybe someone's just unmuted. Beautiful. Now I'm just having a look here in the comments just to see. Oh, great clarity. Thank you, Kimberly. So much to think on in the space between goals and intentions and belief. Beautiful. That's my absolute pleasure. And thank you to those of you that come live, because there's that opportunity to get your questions answered, but it also, we're part of a collective, so it's always deeper. There's a richness that comes from having you here with me. So I'm deeply grateful and thank you so much. And yeah, you'll be on my mailing list now. And I think I'm going to be teaching a very introductory level of meditation for people that just want to learn from someone else. I've learned meditation and done some teacher trainings with a few different teachers, actually. It's been a love of mine for a long time. And I think there's something I can contribute that might be a little bit, that can be simple and easy and people can learn. So that's sort of coming up this year, and also teaching some processing skills. So if that's of interest, then come along, and thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Asha.
Lots of love.
Thanks, Asha.
My pleasure. Thank you.